I do think that that inner governor can shut us down when we're moving forward to our passion and tell us we have to play it safe. And I just don't believe that that's true.
Hi, everybody. It's Richard here. Hi, Kylie.
Hey.
And this is the Conscious Marketer Podcast. Welcome back. And we created this podcast because we really want to help people who are doing conscious stuff, raising consciousness, healing people, doing good stuff in the world, and help the creators out there make a difference. And a lot of you we know are reluctant marketers, people who really might have seen your path as creating or even helping people one-on-one. And when you started your business, you're like, oh my God, I have to figure out a way to reach more people and market it. So that's why we created, it's one of the reasons we created this podcast. Today, we want to share a solo episode and we want to talk a little bit about this concept that we have called the inner governor. And let me just share a little bit about what it is. And then Kylie, you and I can just kind of chat about it. The governor in a car is a mechanism that limits the speed that you can go. And I think it's a really interesting device, you know, that to know that your car can actually go faster than the engine itself is allowing it. And I think it probably makes sense for a lot of automobiles can go a lot faster than what we drive them at. I have an RS3, it's an Audi, and it goes way faster than I'll ever need to drive that car. But it actually, the normal ones have a governor on it, but this one has the governor taken off because it's, you know, it's meant to handle more. There's other governors in our life, not just in our car, but there's governors that often limit our potential. And I think that it's really an interesting question to ask, what governors have I accepted as real in my life that's actually limited what I even believe is possible for myself, for my kids, for my community, for my country, for the world, for the planet. And I think when you look outward and ask that question, all kinds of things. When I asked this question, it was like, poof, it was like all kinds of things arose for me. I was like, oh my God, this is like such an interesting question. I'll share a story because when I made a transition from trading financial futures, working at a hedge fund, and which is a pretty non-governor type of environment. You know, you can raise as much money, you can trade anything in the world. You know? So you can either make or lose everything, you know. And I went from that kind of culture, and I left that, and I took a job at Stanford University in their business school and worked in their administration for a while. For a year as like an assistant director, and it was a really great job. I got to meet all kinds of amazing students, worked directly with the dean there. But I'm kind of an entrepreneur at heart, and so an entrepreneur at heart in an administration is a very difficult spot. And so I remember them asking me, they put me in charge of a global internship program, and my job was to help the MBA students find jobs like overseas. And the class of MBA had about 350 people in it. And, you know, which is a fixed number. They don't go much above that. So even the class size has a governor level. There's only so many people they allow in, right? And so I asked, well, I asked my manager, how many people do you want in this program? And she's like, well, just get as many as possible. Well, the previous year they had 30 people on the program. So I was like, well, I'll do a few, I'm a marketer. I'll do a few marketing events, and we'll see how many we can get in. You know, I want as many people to experience international work as possible. And so I ran these events, and I was like, you tell me what job you want and I'll get it for you. I'll find it for you. That was like my motto. I was like, you want to work for Goldman Sachs? No problem. I'll figure that out. You just tell me what country you want to be in. We'll find an alumni. We'll find a way in. You want to work for a nonprofit in the Amazon? I'll get you down there. I'll figure out what shaman to talk to, you know, I was like Holds Bar. I was like, I'll just figure it out. And so I just kind of gave the students an open book, and Stanford has an amazing alumni network. At the end of the year, we had 100 people, actually 101 people go internationally. So almost that particular year had 30% of the MBA class, a little less than 30%, go on international internships, 4-week internships, which was huge. What I didn't realize was that I had just tripled my workload. And so I was working harder than I had even in the hedge fund in there, and they didn't have any extra budget to hire people to like manage this program. But it was a closed program. And so like the next year, what was the growth potential? Well, after my experience, I was like, oh my God, I've created 2 jobs from my one job. And there was no like growth path. Does that make sense? And so what I realized was in an administration, the job itself had a governor level, and then the working in that environment itself had certain jobs have, they limit what your capability is, where when you're an entrepreneur, kind of the only governor you have is actually yourself. And so sometimes you can have an environmental governor. It can be a job or some commitment that you have, and you have to take care of a aging parent or kids, or like there are things in life that are just, they're there, and some things you can control and some things you can't. But what I want to do is shift to this discussion to the inner governor, because a lot of you listening to this have your own businesses now. And actually what's interesting is the limits we put on ourselves are less so external and more so they're about the own ideas we have about what's possible in our own life.
I think everything you said is incredibly valuable. And if we're talking about inner governors as something stopping us from our potential, I think that one of the things that slowed me down when I was first transitioning from working for other companies and running Facebook ads campaigns to doing what I really wanted to do, which was storytelling, I stayed scared that nobody would want what I really, really wanted to deliver. And so I sold a program on launching because I had been a launch manager, and I put it together, and it was a great program. I think I was 35 and had been in internet marketing for, I don't know, maybe 5 years or something like that. And I knew how to launch. And so I taught launches, but there wasn't a lot of storytelling in it. And so it kind of bored me. And I knew the reason people weren't successful was because they didn't have the right story. So, but I didn't think people would want to buy that. And then I kept playing it safe. And then I launched a Facebook ads course. It was called Facebook Ads Mastery. I put it together. People were very interested in it. It's easy to sell tangible, result-oriented things. And I remember getting on a sales call with this woman who is phenomenal at selling. She sells like $250,000 packages all the time. She's very wealthy, very successful. And I got on a sales call with her to potentially buy her sales course. And we had this conversation about like, what are you selling? Why are you selling it? What do you really want to do? Now, my friend Jeffrey has this beautiful saying: if you feel called to do something, if you have a calling, there's somebody who is calling for you. So you're being called. That's why you have a calling. And so I chatted about that concept with this woman. And she said to me, why don't you launch a story mastermind? Do it tomorrow. And I had paid, so I bought her sales program. It was $8,000, and I did not want to pay for it. I did not want to buy it, but I did. And I didn't even go to any of the calls, but because I had invested that much money into something, I started getting on sales calls just immediately. And I sold out a story mastermind. I think I charged $2,500 for it at that time. It was 8 weeks. I sold it out to about 18 people in about 4 days of doing sales calls. People really did want it. So I think sometimes we overthink our offers, and we're like, I got to play it safe, and I got to do what I think people really want. And it needs to be transactional instead of transformational. That's another term I borrow from Jeffrey. He talks about that all the time. And I found that people really did want it. And I made an entire career out of storytelling after that. I sold out tons of courses and was a freelancer for many, many years and never had to look for clients. And so I do think that that inner governor can shut us down when we're moving forward to our passion and tell us we have to play it safe. And I just don't believe that that's true.
I love that story. And that's a big thing, like could you do what you really love to do as a living? Because some people are like, I can't do that. Nobody will pay money for that, or I can't do that because of this or this reason. So there's often these stories we tell us. I think one of the questions asked is, what do you believe is possible for yourself, and what do you believe is impossible? sometimes it's really interesting to list down all the things that you think are impossible, and then go, well, if it were possible, what would that look like? So it could be something like running a marathon, or starting a business, or moving house, or whatever it is. Sometimes you have to start with what you have to make clear what you think is impossible, and then you can reverse engineer, like, well, what if I chose that, and what if I went and did that? And what you'll find is a lot of the things that you think are impossible could be possible for you. There are some things where the boat has sailed already, so I'm not saying that everything is possible, but more often than not, you can do a lot of things that you don't think you can do. There's more capability in you. I'll give you some other ideas around governor, and just kind of keep this high level, because what I want you to do is I want this to kind of spark some things for your own inquiry. One of the biggest governors that people fail to see in their business, and we'll have to do another episode on this one, Kylie, but it's your business model. Like, you can get locked into a business model that actually limits your growth. And so sometimes you need to actually choose a different business model. One of the governors that people self-impose on themselves because of who their self-worth is, or what they believe the market will pay, is what Kylie just mentioned, is just the price that they charge. So sometimes we have a governor like, well, I can only charge this much in my country or my market. And I can tell you, if you look around and see somebody charging 10 times more, then just know that it's possible that somebody could be charging it, and it's just a choice, So sometimes price can be a governor. And then sometimes the market you choose can be a governor. I think you can choose a market that's actually too small. And so even if you capture the whole market, I think the interesting thing that's happened over the last 10 years is it used to be that your market was whatever, was like a 20-mile radius from your home or whatever, And with online sales, the governor's off, right? Like you can do online yoga or Tai Chi or therapy or internet marketing, whatever you're cooking, teaching, whatever your thing is. There's so many things you can do online, and you could be teaching somebody in Alaska or Slovakia or Australia, like the governor is off. That's like one of the things that enables you to scale. So this is really important. I think that some of the most important governors are just the myths, the beliefs that we have inside. And if you go to, we have a Facebook group called Conscious Marketer's Path. And in there's 12 or 8 myths. And sometimes these myths, they hold us back. And what a myth is actually a governor on our own ability to grow and expand. And so that's why the myths are so important. If you can figure out a mindset or a belief or a myth that's holding you back, it's actually a governor on your own potential. And so you want a lot of success is actually releasing the governors out of your own internal mindset. And then once those are gone, then you can actually grow pretty quickly. Then it's just a matter of choice. Do you want it enough? Can you find a mentor to help you? Do you have a method? So once you've released the inner governors, then I think anything's possible. So I think this is basically the idea of the inner governor. I think it's one of the more powerful concepts we've shared with you on this podcast.
Yeah, I want to speak into pricing for a minute too, because I do think that's a huge limitation that people in the transformational space have. They undercharge. It's a huge mistake that we see. And it makes sense. Like, people in the transformational industries, I think, got their gifts through a lot of pain and rejection. Like, we get really, really good at stuff because we're a little bit unique in a lot of ways. And so that's where our gifts come from. And so we feel like, oh, nobody's going to want it. I was in a mastermind once that I paid, I think, $55,000 to be in for the year. It was a huge investment. And one of the first things that the guy did was like quadruple everybody's pricing. And I would see people selling like channeling, like alien channeling for $2,000 an hour, and like stuff that you just thought that you could never sell. All of a sudden, this alien channeler was selling $2,000 tickets to come over for a group experience, and 12 people were signing up. So he was making 24 grand for doing a little alien channeling, and people loved it. And so that was one of the first things we did to really all raise our prices. And I quadrupled what I was charging for a VIP day at that time. And people said yes. So I feel like a trick or a tip on pricing is if everybody's saying yes to your offers, your pricing is too low. And the way that I teach people how to price is go a little bit higher than you're comfortable with, but not so high that you are going to sweat and cry when you say it to somebody on a sales call. So I just wanted to touch base and go a little deeper on what Richard was saying, because I know everybody listening is probably undercharging just a little bit, and I want you to increase your rate.
Yeah, so that's the inner governor concept. Thank you for joining us on the Conscious Marketer podcast. You can get all the show notes at consciousmarketer.com/podcast. I think this has been a fun episode, Kylie. What do you think?
Absolutely.
And again, we don't have any ads on here. And if you can just leave us a review or share us, go join us at the Conscious Marketers Path Facebook group. We'd love to have you inside there. And thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.